in New York City that apparently this building was being, as part of this renovation, they were adding between 6 and 10 stories to it. And it seems that the beams, those iron beams that were holding the building could not hold these extra floors, that it wasn't reinforced enough according to this union rep, and that the beams could bend like cigarettes, he said. This is his wording. He said that some of his members were inside the building and reported seeing bent windows, bent beams, and that they evacuated the moment that they started seeing some concrete blocks start falling off, that it was a scary experience for them. He is also saying that this might become a controversy, and of course the Department of Buildings is investigating, but he claims that the union had lost the bid to a non-union company, and that there are concerns that maybe there were some corners cut in the process, that he is worried for the safety of his workers and others who were part of this construction. But certainly this is going to be an investigation that the city will be looking into. And as you can see around me, there's police, there's the fire department. Several of the buildings around here were evacuated. And just to explain it to a little bit more detail, this is approximately a 30-story high, or nearly 30-story high building. The beams that collapsed, that buckled, were on the 21st floor. So you have between 6 and 10 more stories over that could have collapsed, and that is why all of these blocks are being cordoned off to make sure that, and the buildings around it were also evacuated. What's happening behind me is that they're setting up for a press conference, so we're hoping to learn a lot more detail from authorities here in New York City about what led to this, how concerned should people be of walking around this area, could it still collapse, and what is being done to reinforce it and prevent what could be a major catastrophe of a building that high coming down.
Yeah, and Lilia, I know you were saying earlier that some of those people in nearby buildings, they had to be evacuated, but do we have any insight, again, waiting for officials to get us more information, but right now, any insight as to when it became clear that, hey, something's wrong, people need to get out of this building, including those construction workers?
Those construction workers were there early in the morning, and the fire department was called at 8 a.m. That is when they responded and immediately evacuated the construction workers who were working in the building, and also, as a precaution, the people who were nearby. No injuries have been reported from those blocks falling. And right now, what we're waiting to hear is how long it'll take to fix this, how wide the area that needs to be protected will be inaccessible, because as you can see, I mean, this is New York City. The buildings are side by side. There's people who live here, who work here, and all of these blocks are now cordoned off. I've seen some people just going up to police and say, hey, I got to go to work. I need to get home. I'm on 46th Street and they need to cross through here. So, you know, fortunately not catastrophic, but inconvenient at the moment. Fortunately, no injuries. We'll hopefully learn more from officials who are going to gather around here for that presser. Yeah,
and you mentioned to Lilia that it seemed like the building was tilted or slanted. Do you still feel like that's the case from your vantage point?
Yeah, from what I see is those top floors, it just kind of looks a little bit slanted, a little bit crooked. It's not so obvious to the naked eye, but according to this union rep who spoke with WCBS earlier, the beams were, what he described was that these beams were bent like cigarettes. I mean, imagine the amount of weight that they were holding if this was not reinforced properly or enough, that there were windows that seemed to be bending. It's hard to tell from here because those, I mean, I'm not sure what it looked like before, but there's a top floor there that doesn't have windows. So it's not, and that is kind of where you can see that tilt, where you can see one outside beam, one structural beam that seems like it's the one that buckled, but we don't have enough information to know whether that is the one. But from what I'm seeing here, it does seem like there's one little beam there in the corner that seems to be kind of off to the side. And the building itself, those top floors just seem a little bit uneven from down here. And of course, we're 30 stories down and across the street. Yeah. But maybe Fred is zooming in there for you to take a closer look. and I'll let our audience decide whether this, looks like this is the beam that buckled. We're hoping to hear more from the authorities here, but just from where I stand, not as an expert, it does look a little bit like off to the side.
And Lilia, I know obviously, as you mentioned earlier, we are still waiting to get the official details from investigators and officials out there. But what is the scene like? Earlier when we were talking to you, it seemed really frantic and they were still moving you to other areas. What is the scene like right now? Do you have people standing out there waiting to see what's going on?
Yeah. I'll actually have Fred pan to the side a little bit so you can see the amount of people just here curious, standing around, taking a look, wondering what's happened, asking us reporters. There is a lot of media here. Of course, we are in Midtown Manhattan where TV stations, networks, we all work around here, so a lot of people got here very quickly. And there's fire trucks. There were a lot more fire trucks lined up here on 2nd Avenue behind where I'm standing. Those have since been moved. The police presence is mostly to keep people from entering the area, but it seems to have calmed down a little bit. I'm seeing the officials now standing in line here and answering some questions from print reporters as they prepare to give more of an official statement. But yeah, it's calmed down in terms of the presence of authorities and of fire crews. So that, I guess, gives us an indication that perhaps this is not an immediate threat, but that they're figuring out or they're handling the situation to keep the building from collapsing.
Yeah, and that is so good to know. Lilia Luciano in Midtown Manhattan for us today. As Lilia said, and as we told you earlier, we are expecting a press conference from officials any moment now. We know officials from the fire department and New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani will be present. We'll bring that news conference to you live as soon as it begins right here on CBS News 24/7. But now let's get to coverage from WCBS in New York.
Let's begin with that breaking news on the east side. 9 buildings, including schools, have now been evacuated on the east side after buckling columns cause major structural damage. Let's go out live to Lisa Rosner. She's on scene with the very latest about what's happening. Lisa.
Well, Jessica, we are on 2nd Avenue, very close to the building in question here. Several blocks are shut down, and I want to show you the building right now. It's been under construction, and a rep from the Steamfitters Union that was inside tells me that they saw cracking windows, bent beams, and concrete falling from the roof.
We're getting reports from the construction that 2 columns buckled on the 21st floor.
Dramatic video and photos from one of the floors inside 235 East 42nd Street shows buckling columns and sagging floors.
They were up working on the floor, and somebody saw that the concrete was coming down, the beams started bending, the windows started busting. So as soon as you see that, they know well enough to get out of there.
The FDNY says the call came in around 8 a.m. for bricks falling from the 38-story building under construction. Upon arrival, units determined 2 columns buckled on the 21st and 22nd floors, and floors were sagging between the 21st and 26th levels.
This building was renovated, and they were going to add another 16 stories to it. But at that point, you need to add more steel. And they obviously didn't add the right amount of steel. So the north side of that building is crumbling. The I-beams are bending like cigarettes in there, which is super dangerous.
He says most of the trades on the job are non-union and blames the developer.
They chose profit over safety and put my members and every construction worker over here in jeopardy.
Our top priority right now is the safety of those who live in this area, the safety of those who work in this area, and DOB inspectors and engineers are on site working quickly to secure the site as well as that surrounding area.
We reached out to the developer Metro Loft for comment, and in a statement they told us we are working closely with the Department of Buildings to understand the full scope of the situation. The safety of our workers and the public has always been and remains our top priority. Again, at this time, no reports of any injuries. We're live in Midtown. Lisa Rosner, CBS News, New York.
All right, Lisa, thank you. Let's bring in Tim McNicholas now. He's live there on the east side. Tim, 2nd Avenue and 42nd Street. What are you learning about the history of the ongoing work at this building? What can you tell us?
So, Jessica, this is not the first time that city inspectors have responded to reports of things falling from this construction site. About a year ago, in July of 2025, inspectors issued a $5,000 fine to the contractor, that's 235 GC LLC, after the buildings department said a piece of window glass fell from the 8th floor onto a sidewalk shed. About a month later in August, city records show a metal pane fell from the 33rd floor and landed on the sidewalk. The city then issued a $10,000 penalty for that and a temporary stop work order for the entire site. All told, the contractor has racked up 7 violations and tens of thousands of dollars in fines over the last year. All of them are now listed as resolved, and there were no open violations here as of this morning. The most recent violations were in December. That's when inspectors said a worker actually fell about 6 feet from a ladder while dismantling a crane. The city also issued a violation for failure to report that worker's injury to the Department of Buildings within 3 days. Now, we have reached out to that contractor. Again, that's 235 GC LLC, and we are waiting to hear back. And as Lisa mentioned, the developer Metro Loft says they are working with the city to fully determine the scope of this situation, Jessica.
Well, and as you heard from one of the union reps out there, he's accusing the company of choosing profits over safety. I know there are going to be a lot of questions, and we are waiting for the FDNY to give us an update. Tim, thank you. Keep us updated on that. Let's go now to Mike Shinoda. He's a civil engineer at Farmingdale State College. Mike, thank you so much for weighing in. We could use your expertise. Let's start with, how serious is it when engineers hear multiple floors are sagging? And can you paint the picture of what's happening beneath the surface that we can't see?
Oh, sure. Obviously, it's very serious when you have a situation like that. I mean, the building could be imminently collapsing potentially. But the thing is, temporary shoring and support for a building is generally one of the more complex things that happen during construction. But what makes it even more complicated in this situation is, number one, it's changing from a commercial to a residential use, so the loads and where they're moving are changing during the course of this. And you're doing this also at great height. There's a lot of equipment moving around, so it creates a double hazard that makes it really complicated to set this kind of thing up.
So when people hear the words buckled columns, sagging floors, they immediately think of collapse. As you said, that could potentially happen. Put it into perspective for us, though. How is this? How concerning is it? And how will officials determine which surrounding buildings need to be evacuated?
There are usually more, I would call them catastrophic signs, that if the building is in imminent danger of complete collapse. These are certainly extremely concerning signs, but it doesn't seem like the building is in danger of imminent collapse at the moment, but it's something that could loom relatively close. And so for sure, the steps that they've taken, evacuating the building, evacuating nearby buildings, are quite prudent and necessary.
So what is the process for stabilizing this building before construction can resume, before people can return to their buildings?
So you can put temporary members, you can put jacks and things like that. Normally, the typical things that are done for temporary shoring of the building, they'll have to look at it again. It's potentially possible to resume construction with the right type of temporary support put in place, but for sure, the temporary step at the moment of evacuating and investigating is very important.
I know we're not going to hold you to this, but in your expert opinion, what are we looking at for a timeline? Do you think they'll be resuming today? Will people be allowed to go back today? Is it hours? Is it days?
No, I would be surprised at least several days before any kind of work could resume. It needs some deep investigation to make sure that it's safe for work to resume at a few days at the very least. All
right, Mike Shinoda, thank you. We may check back in with you in a bit once we get some more information from fire officials. Thank you so much for your expertise. And do stay with
All right, if you are just joining us, we are following breaking news out of Midtown Manhattan, and that is because there is a building there under construction that looks like it is in danger of collapsing. Our Lilia Luciano was at the scene and said the building is kind of tilted. People have been evacuated from the area, and we are waiting to hear from officials. You see that podium there. As soon as that news conference begins, we'll bring it to you right here on CBS News 24/7. For now, stay with us. We'll be right back.
to get a 360-degree understanding of America is to get out there in America. There really is no swing at all when it comes to the priorities of everyday people. We care about how secure our job is, whether we can plan on retiring with dignity, whether our kids can have a brighter future than we have today. These are the fundamentals of American life, and I think they can be again.
Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Politics isn't a game. Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
Politics is about policy. I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were going to find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that. We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police!
You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
I'm Tony DeCopel from a region at war tonight.
To tell the story,
Hello up there.
You have to be there, seeing it firsthand.
I'm Tony, I work for CBS.
Can you clarify what this war is about? How do you avoid this becoming a death trap?
This war only seems to be accelerating.
The CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
Welcome back. We continue to follow that breaking news out of Midtown Manhattan, where a building that's under construction is now in danger of collapsing. We're still waiting to hear from officials, but right now let's get to coverage from WCBS in New York.
We continue to follow that breaking news. You see the podium there. We're waiting on an update from FDNY officials. But here is some video on the right-hand side of your screen at the building in question. A potentially dangerous, certainly disruptive situation on the east side of Manhattan. Buckling columns at a building under construction forced evacuations at 9 nearby buildings, including schools. Now, we are told there are no reported injuries at this time, but think about that. 9 buildings on the east side. This is a very busy area of Manhattan, all evacuated. And the civil engineer we spoke with earlier says he thinks it'll be at least a couple of days, if not longer, before the work can resume there. We understand that this building was being transformed from a commercial building into a residential building. And we saw video earlier of those buckling columns on the interior of that building, forcing those evacuations. As soon as the FDNY walks up to the podium, we will bring you that news conference live. In the meantime.
And now let's go back to CBS News national correspondent Lilia Luciano, who is live in Midtown right now at the scene. Lilia, I know we're still waiting to hear from officials out there, but can you set the scene for us and give us the latest?
Yeah, Mugo, we're waiting to hear from Mayor Mamdani and the fire commissioner, who will arrive here to give us more details about what led to these columns buckling and what concerns should people have. What we have heard is that At 8 a.m. this morning, this building that's behind me that you can see is surrounded by these barricades, that there are police cars, that there are fire trucks around it. Several blocks have been cordoned off to keep people safe as the Department of Buildings investigates and tries to reinforce in some way, and workers can reinforce the building to keep it safe, that there were some columns that buckled inside the building. From where I stand, you can kind of see, and we were talking about that earlier, how there's something that looks like it's out of line in one of those corners. The workers that were inside that building at around 8 a.m. when the fire department responded said that they were immediately evacuated when they saw that some windows had bent, some columns had bent, and blocks started falling off. They immediately evacuated, and as we heard before, up to nine buildings in that area were also evacuated for safety. We WCBS spoke with a rep from the union who said that, according to him, the contract for this conversion from commercial to residential building was lost in a bid to a non-union company. That, according to his members who were inside the building, the columns could not support the additional floors that were being built, somewhere between 6 and 10 floors, up to 10 floors that were being built on top of that building, and that the columns were bent like cigarettes. This is his wording. We, of course, are going to ask those questions from the officials, including Mayor Mamdani, that is going to show up here, but that there may have been concerns according to this union rep, of cutting corners for profit. This is his wording. This is what he said, and that there's a great deal of concern over what are the requirements to keep a building that you're adding floors onto, and whether that was followed or not. It could take days for the construction to resume there, and of course, the workers who are working inside that building are certainly concerned or worried. Described the evacuation as very scary. Also, the people who were in the buildings nearby, including a school, including News Nation, and other media companies and residential buildings, all of those people at this moment, as you can see, this is all cordoned off, have not been able, from what I know, to go back into those buildings. We're awaiting more information about just the degree of danger, of threat that this building poses, but we know that inspectors from the Department of Buildings were in there. We're talking the floor that was compromised was the 21st floor, and the sagging, as was described by the authorities, was between the floors 21 and 26. What I'm not sure, and I want to ask at this press conference too, is whether those additional floors were already constructed, or if this is something that had just started, because of course the building is under active construction. So whether the buckling happened because of that amount of weight, or whether it was just early in the process and it started bending, it started coming down. But a collapse of a building, even those top floors, in Midtown Manhattan, or on 42nd Street, I mean, we are near Grand Central, we're near all of these office and residential buildings, is certainly a cause for concern and an inconvenience for commuters. It started at 8 a.m. this morning. I had to tell the Uber when I got the news and we rushed to the scene to just leave me a few blocks away, because all of this was starting to get closed off, and I just kind of ran to here and saw multiple fire trucks, police starting to assemble there, and then workers and inspectors with their hard hats that were starting to assemble in the area. And of course now what I'm seeing is a lot of people, of course curious people, start assembling here and asking questions. I heard one woman say, "Man, New York is crazy." And of course this is one of those stories where you say, how is that possible? And I had to turn around and say, yeah, it is in many ways.
And I'm glad that we can laugh about it right now, Lilia, just knowing that no one was hurt. Exactly, exactly. But you mentioned something.
Nobody was hurt, but some people were scared. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure. You mentioned something earlier, that this building is under construction. It used to be a commercial building, right?
Yes. What I read about the building is that years ago, not currently, it housed some Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, offices. it was commercial and now it's being converted into residential. Look, any one of us who lives in New York City knows that we need more housing in New York City, that there's so many buildings that need to be converted into residential buildings. So that sounds like that's what was in the process of being constructed here, is turning it from commercial to residential. What that requires, of course, we'll try to find some experts to explain that to us. How do you make those conversions? That has been an important talking point and something that people have advocated for. A lot of the commercial spaces, office spaces in New York City that held offices, and after the pandemic and places went, or offices and companies went to work from home or remote work, there seems to be an increased supply, or at least space, to convert commercial spaces, office spaces into residential spaces, and hopefully have an impact in the cost of living for residents of New York City. This seems to be one of those cases. Not sure exactly where in that construction they were or how much longer it would take to convert this building in particular, but it is an important question. Where were they in the process of adding those extra floors that, according to this union rep, were being piled on the building, and whether the requirements to hold that amount of weight of those additional floors were being followed. I mean, if those procedures, if those requirements were being followed. But one thing that really caught my attention from what the union rep said is, look, the company that won the bid was a non-union company, and that the recommendations from the union could potentially not have been followed properly, according to the union rep.
Yeah. And Lilia, I'm not sure if this is something you have an answer to, but as we wait to hear from officials and get more details from them, I see that there are emergency vehicles behind you and officials out there too. Are there people in that building right now trying to figure out what's going on? Because I'm sure there are people who live nearby, as you said, who are wondering, when can we go back to our homes or to our workplace?
Initially, officials reported that there were inspectors who had gone in, but I'm not sure what that means, whether they were inspecting the building going inside, because clearly it was not a safe space, or if what that meant was, let's assess the damage from the information that we have from the workers that were evacuated from the outside. I did see some of the first responder trucks that were there included ambulances and fire department vehicles that were not necessarily fire trucks, but to assist with. One of the vehicles said something about respiratory something. Pardon, I did not take a photo of it or write it down, but basically there were vehicles here that were meant to attend to treat any possible injuries from a potential collapse. Those have now left the scene, so I can only assume that there's nobody at risk right now within the building. What we heard is that there were some agency heads that held a meeting a few minutes ago at around 11:45, I think they said, who were just determining what the next steps are, and they're preparing to now respond to questions from reporters in that press conference. We'll certainly ask about that, but what officials have said is that there were no injuries. I can't imagine that people went right into the building. The crews that I saw had their hard hats and were approaching and near the area, but I didn't see anybody going inside, not at this point.
Okay, Lilia Luciano in Midtown Manhattan for us today. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again shortly, but for those who are just joining us here on CBS News 24/7, there is a building under construction in Midtown Manhattan that seems to be like it's in danger of collapsing. Construction crews were working on that building, but then at some point they were forced to come out because of just the safety issues there with that building. We also know that about 9 buildings surrounding the building that's under construction, they had to be evacuated. Right now, we're waiting to hear from officials in New York City as to where things are and the safety of that. If you saw in Lilia's shot out there, the entire area is blocked off right now. The good news, the one thing we can say, at least from what we're hearing out there on the scene, is that no one was hurt. We'll, of course, continue to follow this for you and bring you breaking information as soon as we get it. Right now, Joe, I believe we're going to head to break, and we'll be right back. Actually, producer is telling us that we are not. All right, we have breaking news at this hour, and that is Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. He has released a statement on the Maine Senate race saying, quote, "I have spoken with Graham Plattner about the best path forward for Maine. In the light of these very serious allegations, I have recommended that he step aside." That is another huge endorsement now dropped for the embattled Senate candidate. We have much more on this story coming up in the next hour. But right now, we're going to continue with coverage on that building that seems like it's in danger of collapse in Midtown Manhattan. Again, as we told you, we are waiting to hear from crews there. You look at the scene there, you can see a lot of officials, a lot of crew members, and it is roped off, just blocked off. There's a podium there as well. Let's listen into WCBS and their coverage.
9 buildings, including schools, have now been evacuated on the east side after buckling columns caused major structural damage. Let's go out live to Lisa Rosner. She's on scene with the very latest about what's happening. Lisa.
Well, Jessica, we are on 2nd Avenue, very close to the building in question here. Several blocks are shut down, and I want to show you the building right now. It's been under construction, and a rep from the Steamfitters Union that was inside tells me that they saw cracking windows, bent beams, and concrete falling from the roof.
We're getting reports from the construction that 2 columns buckled on the 21st floor.
Dramatic video and photos from one of the floors inside 235 East 42nd Street shows buckling columns and sagging floors.
They were up working on the floor, and somebody saw that the concrete was coming down, the beams started bending, the windows started busting. So as soon as you see that, they know well enough to get out of there.
The FDNY says the call came in around 8 a.m. for bricks falling from the 38-story building under construction. Upon arrival, units determined 2 columns buckled on the 21st and 22nd floors, and floors were sagging between the 21st and 26th levels.
This building was renovated, and they were going to add another 16 stories to it. But at that point, you need to add more steel, and they obviously didn't add the right amount of steel. So the north side of that building is crumbling. The I-beams are bending like cigarettes in there, which is super dangerous.
He says most of the trades on the job are non-union and blames the developer.
They chose profit over safety and put my members and every construction worker over here in jeopardy.
Our top priority right now is the safety of those who live in this area, the safety of those who work in this area, and DOB inspectors and engineers are on site working quickly to secure the site as well as that surrounding area.
We reached out to the developer Metro Loft for comment, and in a statement they told us, "We are working closely with the Department of Buildings to understand the full scope of the situation. The safety of our workers and the public has always been and remains our top priority." Again, at this time, no reports of any injuries. We're live in Midtown. Lisa Rosner, CBS News, New York.
And you were just listening to coverage there from WCBS. Right now, we are seeing Mayor Zohran Mamdani walking out to the scene. As we told you, we've been waiting to hear from officials as to exactly what happened there and to get more information from them, because there is a building in Midtown Manhattan. It used to be a commercial building, from what we're learning from Lilia Luciano, and construction crews were working to turn it into a residential building. Again, that's the mayor. It looks like he's walking. Let's listen into what he has to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Around 8 a.m. this morning, FDNY received reports of a structural issue at an active construction site on East 42nd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. This is an existing 37-story building with active permits to convert it from a commercial office building to a residential building. First responders from FDNY, NYSEM, and the Department of Buildings responded to the call immediately and found structural issues on the 21st floor. 2 structural columns have buckled, in addition to multiple cracks and sagging floors. The building remains unstable. Since arriving on scene, we have witnessed additional movement in one of the compromised columns. First responders and structural engineers are working closely with the project engineer to develop plans to shore up the impacted floor. If the floor is deemed to be secure, engineers will enter and begin shoring up the building. As we await the arrivals of materials that will stabilize the building, DOB engineers have been investigating with FDNY drones. This is an extremely serious situation, and I am thankful to our first responders for quickly arriving at the site, and to New Yorkers for reacting calmly and with urgency. I'm grateful to report that there have been no injuries at this time and that every worker has been accounted for. The NYPD has instituted a frozen zone from 40th to 45th Streets between 1st and 3rd Avenues. These streets have been temporarily closed off to both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. The NYPD is also deploying additional officers to ensure that the area remains secure. I want to encourage New Yorkers to avoid the area until it has been deemed safe to re-enter. As we work to secure this building and ensure that New Yorkers are safe, I want to encourage New Yorkers to also continue to follow the instructions of those who are on the ground. Now, I want to thank the many government agencies who have worked closely with one another this morning to protect the people of the city. FDNY coordinated with NYSM. NYPD officers are keeping traffic moving and helping to keep New Yorkers out of the frozen zones. DOB inspectors and engineers are managing an incredibly complex situation. On behalf of New York City, thank you. Now I will pass it over to our Fire Commissioner, Lillian Bonsignore.
Thank you. Good afternoon. At 7:57 this morning, the FDNY received a 911 call for 235 East 42nd Street. The report was for bricks falling from the upper floors. Our units arrived very quickly and did an assessment. At this moment, we have 150 fire and EMS personnel on scene, over 50 units. Upon arrival, there was an assessment done and the building was determined to be unstable. So we started evacuations of the building and the surrounding areas, establishing a collapse zone. I'm going to turn this over to Chief of Department John Esposito to talk a little bit more about the actual operations here.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when we arrived on the scene to the reports of buildings, bricks falling from the building, we conducted the assessment. We put our firefighters into the building to conduct the search. We were in touch with the construction crews. All workers were accounted for. There were no injuries. It's a very serious situation. The box beams, the steel beams, have started to bend and deflect from the weight. We evacuated the building and started evacuations of surrounding buildings, and the building has continued to move since we've been on the scene. We have a frozen zone and a collapse zone set up, and we are working with the buildings department and the building engineer to make sure that this is safe for our people and for all New Yorkers. I'm going to turn it over now to the Department of Buildings Commissioner.
Hello, everyone. Much of the initial information, the setting, has been already shared by the mayor and my colleagues. We have seen both buckling and floor conditions that are impaired on the 21st floor. We both have construction safety inspectors and construction safety engineers on site evaluating from the street and vantage points set up across the street and to the west, so we can monitor movement of the building and the floors to understand what's happening on a continuous basis. Once we can determine that it's safe to enter the building, we will then, in concert with the contractors, ownership, and with consultation with FDNY, be able to deploy a plan to shore up that floor and then continue to investigate further for any other weak points that need further help and shoring. After that point, we will be able to investigate further if there's anything else that we need to do scoping out from that area. The work of FDNY, and I want to thank OEM FDNY for the work they're doing to create the perimeter and the safety zone. We encourage everyone to please heed our ask not to come to the area, and right now the safety of the public is our top priority. Once we have more, we'll make sure to share that information with the public.
Okay, we have time for just a few questions, and please speak up. We're going to start with Andrew Stitt from NBC. Yes. And please speak up.
Chief Esposito talked about seeing that the building has continued to move. Can you clarify for us, does that mean that those top floors remain at risk of actual collapse? What do you mean by at risk of seeing continue to move? And is it a
So we have specialized tools that we can watch the building from and see movement even in centimeters or fractions of an inch. And since we arrived on the scene and put that in place, we have seen continual movement. It does mean that it is not yet stable. It is still a very serious and dangerous situation.
And just, Mayor, to follow up on that, having heard the assessment from the chief, what worries you the most about this situation?
I think this is a minute-by-minute assessment, and I'm thankful for the work of all of our city workers in doing exactly that from the morning through this moment and then through the rest of the day. And as you heard from our DOB commissioner, the number one focus here is the safety of New Yorkers. We're thankful that at this time there are no injuries. Every worker is accounted for, and now we are continuing to assess. As soon as this building is stable, it then opens up the possibilities for us to shore up the building. But until that point, we are still having to measure that. I know our DOB commissioner wanted to add a few details.
As an example of how information changes over time, the initial report that came in was about bricks falling off the building. When arriving, we did not see evidence of that, so we're not seeing things come off. The compromise point, as you mentioned, is something that we're monitoring and looking at. The chief, especially FDNY's drone unit, has been integral to watching and seeing how that movement happens. And so right now you have both DOB staff, you have the contractors with beams that are tracking that. And what we are focused on and what we feel like the next step is making sure we can get into that 21st floor to add additional emergency trusses to spread that load and be able to move on with the investigation.
Thank you. We're going to go to Gloria Pasmino from CNN. Mayor and the commissioners, can you speak about the addition of floors as part of this project and whether that addition had anything to do with the buckling of the beams that was reported? And can we get some clarity on how many floors there actually are? Because I think there's some confusion because of that addition.
So I will just add a few words before passing it over to my deputy mayor for housing to share on that. When it comes to what this building is, as you said, this is a commercial office building that is being renovated into a residential building. And as part of the renovations is what we have seen here today. I'll pass it over.
We'll have the DOB.
Yeah, well, DOB commissioner come up.
So if I understood the question, this is a building that was going through a office residential conversion. It went through plan review and has gone through an exhaustive review with DOB over the last 2 years. What is happening now is an investigation of what is the cause of why the undermining happened. And so once we have that information, we'll be able to share it. But as the mayor said, it's a conversion of an office building into a residential property. And with that comes certain code changes and structural requirements, all of which have gone through a plan review. And now we're examining what happened now, and we'll check it against the reviews, the plans were approved. Oh, sorry, that was the question. So the existing, it's 37 floors with an addition of 11 floors above a 22-floor element. So 22 floors on one piece, 37 on the taller part of the building, and they were adding 11 floors above the 22 floors.
And how many floors exist now?
So right now there are 37 floors, and they have topped out on the extension as well. So the extension's been built out, and they have topped out on that part as well.
All right, thank you. We're going to take two more. We're going to go to Aaron from ABC News. Go ahead.
Yes.
It appears just by looking at it, the building is leaning. Is the building leaning? And is the concern an internal collapse or an external collapse on its screen?
The concern is that since we have been on site in the early morning, we have seen continued shift of the structure, and I'm going to pass it over to our chief of department to add a little more detail there.
Thank you. The way this building is constructed, it's a steel frame building, so it would not be a total collapse. It would be more of a localized collapse, but that remains our concern, that it's moving. Possibly.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Now, one more question. We're going to go to Jill from New York One. If you can speak up.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. You or some of the folks around you tell us a little bit about how do you shore up this building right now? How do you get this in a condition
So I'll first just start with the importance of safety at this time. We have evacuated not only the building, but also 7 buildings around it. I really do appreciate the way in which New Yorkers have responded to this situation. We've seen that they have followed the instructions that have been provided by first responders on the ground, and that has been immensely helpful to ensuring that those first responders can be focused on the work at hand. I'm now going to pass it over to our DOB Commissioner to add 2 additional details.
So because the structural issue has to do with load-bearing columns, what we bring in are emergency struts that will take on the load of that and be applied throughout the floor to take on that load. Plus, we may apply additional struts, given that there could be weakening or cracks somewhere else. So it's really emergency beams, emergency columns that are brought in, and then they go and replace the load. Plus, we may add additional for extra security and safety. Yes, as we discussed before, there is extensive work happening right now between the engineers, DOB staff, FDNY to evaluate the situation on the level using the information that we're reading from the outside. Once we have a secure plan, we'll be able to bring the equipment that we have now on site after asking the contractor to bring that forward so that we're ready to go once we have a plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we have time for just one more. We're going to pick just one last one, then we have to go. Go ahead, pick.
Thank you for joining this one, because we're part of the people who've been evacuated.
Yes.
Can we talk about the timeline going forward? What message do you have for people who right now are out of their buildings, hotels, schools, office buildings? What message do you have for them? I know it's an unfolding situation, but can you give us some sense of when at least the buildings that are not the building can get back to some degree to your normal?
You know, I want to be honest with New Yorkers that this is a fast developing situation. We are taking it minute by minute, and I appreciate our city workers who have been on the forefront of that. Every few minutes, we are looking at a new assessment of the structure and of the possibilities and the options that we have in front of us. When it comes to the New Yorkers who call these streets their home, we are going to be in touch with them as soon as we have any updates. What I will say to them for now is thank you, because despite the impact on their day, they have responded calmly, they have responded with urgency, and to those New Yorkers who do not live in this neighborhood, I would say to steer clear of this area so that we can actually ensure the focus is on this response. We will be sure to keep the public up to date with any new developments as we have them. Right now, we're going to go back to work to ensure that all of these incredible city workers can do what they have been here doing since the morning, which is looking to keep us all safe. We are only going to allow New Yorkers to return back into these buildings when we are fully confident that they are safe for them to do so. That safety is paramount for us in every decision we're making right now.
Great, thank you so much.
There were corners cut by the developers. A union rep told CBS News that they were concerned that the company that won the bid was a non-union company, and that his workers who were members who had been working there said that corners were cut and that this was not appropriate or proper construction.
I think you heard from our DOB commissioner that there is an active investigation underway as to what brought us to this point. Our focus right now is on making sure that this site is safe, this building is safe, this neighborhood is safe. That investigation, however, will continue because we want to make sure that these actions are not ones that are repeated. Thank you all very much.
All right, if you're just joining us, you were just hearing from New York City officials there, including Mayor Zohran Mamdani. And this is about a very active situation in Midtown Manhattan. A building there is unstable. That building, a 37-story building, was under construction. The hope was to turn it from a commercial building into a residential building. But at some point, reports say that there were some bricks falling from that building, and it seems now that building has been deemed unstable. Mayor Zohran Mamdani saying the goal right now is to find a way to stabilize the building. In the meantime, several buildings surrounding that building have been evacuated, and we also know that people are being told to stay away from the area as crews work to, again, stabilize that building. The one good news we can say is that no one was hurt. Those crews, construction crews who were working on the building, were able to get out safely, and the area right now has been evacuated. We're hearing at least 5 streets evacuated as crews work to stabilize the building and then hopefully figure out what comes next from there. We'll continue to follow this breaking news story for you and bring you updates as they come into our newsroom. But for now, though, we're going to turn now to Boston, where slow-moving storms could cause some flash flooding. And meteorologist Jessica Birch is joining us right now. Looks very gloomy in that shot out there.
I mean, it was just 24 hours ago at this exact time while we were dealing with flash flood warnings in Philadelphia from the exact same storm system that's still bringing out more moisture today.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick look at what's happening for us. Starting off with the map just below me, it's almost hard to tell, but there are still flood advisories in effect right now. Flood watches, I should say, in effect, stretched all the way over into southern parts of Pennsylvania, eastern parts of West Virginia, and throughout most of the state of Virginia itself. As we take a look at that Doppler radar and zoom in, where the active storms are still at are places like Boston, up into Portland, and right back down into Hartford, too. Now, throughout the next 24 hours, we'll watch that area of low pressure. You can see it working in a counterclockwise direction, continue to ring out offshore as we head into our Wednesday morning forecast. Still some lingering showers closer to Virginia, stretched all the way up into parts of the Carolinas as well. Now, by tomorrow afternoon, we'll see another batch of storms appear widespread throughout the Appalachians, stretched all the way up into the northeast, getting a little bit of a break in the overnight hours with some more light lingering showers all the way into Thursday, too. But let's take it a step back. Today is the last day we will be dealing with these flood alerts issued by the National Weather Service. As of now, it's just a flood watch in northern parts of North Carolina, throughout Virginia, and stretched all the way up into Pennsylvania, where we can see an additional 2 to 4 inches of rain accumulate. So we will monitor the National Weather Service. Of course, with any flash flood warnings, we'll keep you updated on that too. But right now, those showers are continuing to move off to the east. We're starting to see some cooler air on the back end of that too, which is such a relief compared to last week's heat, Mugo.
All right, Jess, thank you so much. Now here's a look at some other headlines we are following for you at this hour. Toyota says it will shift most production of its Tacoma pickup truck from Mexico to the United States. It's part of a $3.6 billion investment in its San Antonio, Texas plant. Toyota and other major automakers are shifting production to the U.S. as President Trump raises tariffs on automobiles. The transition will take roughly 4 years to complete. Walmart is lowering prices on thousands of products on its shelves and says the cuts are aimed at reducing the costs of seasonal summer items. The price cuts are available in stores, online, and also at Sam's Club locations. President Trump praised the decision by the company. The price reductions went into effect last week. The annual running of the bulls just kicked off in Spain today. This is terrifying. The competition happens during the San Fermin Festival in Pamplona. As part of the tradition, thousands of runners will sprint ahead of 6 fighting bulls along a barricaded course. Now, this run lasts about 2 to 3 minutes. The full 9-day festival includes music, parades, and traditional celebrations. 2 to 3 minutes, Reed, and I am sure those 2 to 3 minutes, that's enough time to get really hurt. Woo. Look at that.
They've been doing it for a long, long time.
That's right. They know that's right. It seems like it.
My American brain just says, but why?
Same here. My American brain also says, but why? But seems like a lot of fun. All right, that does it for me today. Reed Calvin, take over.
Sorry to my friends in Catalonia. All right, tense day in Manhattan. Listen to this characterization. Some saying beams inside an evacuated building are bending like cigarettes. We just heard from New York's Mayor Mamdani about evacuations and also what he calls a fall zone. A lot more questions when we continue on CBS News 24/7.
U.S. Marshals, we do this job because others can't.
Saddle up, cowboy.
Over 25 million viewers have made CBS's Marshals TV's #1 new show.
Our Marshals came up big today.
Marshals, a new era of Yellowstone. New episodes CBS Sunday and streaming on Paramount+.
We don't want to accept that there's evil that walks amongst us, but it does.
You know how when you meet somebody, you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right?
You never know what anybody is capable of.
I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
Did you think when this goes public, this town's gonna be shocked?
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with a 30-year-old cold case, it seems like there's not a lot of hope.
We knew there was a monster out there and we were gonna find him and get him.
Look at him just coming around the corner like that.
We started tracking the area.
When did this accident scene become a crime scene?
Police! You called him a lying liar who lies about lying.
Do you know why we're stopping you today?
What makes you so sure that you stabbed your sister while you were sleepwalking?
I never got a chance to see her one last time.
Such injustice. I can't believe they did this to her.
But no matter how hard it gets, never give up.
I'm Natalie Morales with 48 Hours. Did you have anything to do with Joanna Hunter's death?
This is a family that just wants justice.
Why doesn't he tell Republicans, come into my office, let's hammer this thing out?
Margaret, it's a totally fair question.
Politics isn't a game. Why are you opposed to this deployment?
It's unconstitutional.
Politics is about policy. I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Glass.
You're a spy.
Well, nothing gets past the feds, does it? We got work to do. I don't really trust anyone. Those are the only people worth trusting.
CIA. New series CBS Monday after a new FBI.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Half a world away.
Reach for the stars.
If I take time to think, they might go get Brad.
Experience thought-provoking,
Mystical in every sense of the word.
and truly original reporting.
That's your superpower.
There's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
Happening now, worry of a building collapse in New York City causes evacuations in Manhattan. Some say beams look to be buckling at this hour like cigarettes. Plus, President Donald Trump is in Turkey for a NATO summit with European allies. The president talks about ending sanctions and the potential sale of arms. We're going to have world reaction to that. And then 2 explosions rip the heart of the Syrian capital. The search for answers in Damascus as we see smoke rise. I'm Reed Cowan. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Happening now, big breaking news out of New York City brings the newly elected mayor to a podium. Mayor Zohran Mamdani speaking about the building that's facing possible risk of collapse. He says it's urgent. All eyes on this high-rise you see right here behind me. It's not too far away from Grand Central Station. We're hearing about falling bricks on the outside, and then look at the photos from the inside. We're going to switch that up here quickly. You see that beam right there? The person who described seeing that beam that called 911 said they felt like they looked like they were bending like cigarettes. Okay, so we were turning around what a person had to say about that. Our apologies, didn't play out quite like we planned it. But we do have somebody live there at the scene, CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano. So Lilia, that union representative, if that soundbite had played, was pretty critical of the construction group that is there trying to convert this building into a residential building by adding stories and arguably weight on top. What are you seeing there, and what did Mayor Zohran Mamdani have to say?
Well, I specifically asked Mayor Mamdani about these allegations from that union rep who said that the company that won the bid on this building is a non-union company, that the union rep alleges that there were corners cut, just to paraphrase his allegations. What we did confirm from the press conference is that there were 11 floors that were added to one of the towers or one of the levels of the building. Mayor Mamdani said, look, this is under investigation. The Department of Buildings is looking into it. If there were corners cut, of course, that there would be consequences, that this is something that the city wants to make sure never happens. What we are also learning is that there is active active movement right now, Reed. They have drones inspecting the outside of the building. There are monitors that can capture even fractions of movements on and around the building. So they're using high-tech devices to make sure to document whether it is moving. And what the mayor said is that it is moving, that this is a rapidly changing situation, that it could be a serious situation because it is still unstable. What that means is that that 21st floor, where those beams, those two beams buckled, where it seemed like between the 21st and the 26th floor, there was some sagging, as you described, as the union rep had said, that the beams were bending like cigarettes, that the windows were bending. It means that this building is still unsafe for crews to go in there and reinforce and shore up what needs to be shored up so that it doesn't collapse. There is a freeze zone. There is a collapse zone that is being cordoned off because the building could still collapse. The authorities were asked, does this mean that it looks like it could tilt? Does it tilt onto the street? What the officials said, it's because it is a steel beam building, it would be more of an internal collapse. So, I mean, what I'm doing with my hand is kind of what the reporter who asked the question, and the officials kind of indicated that it's more like this rather than like that. Pardon the sign language, obviously not an expert here, but that there is a freeze zone. They have frozen between 40th Street and 45th Street, that people cannot be walking around or driving in this area, and between 1st and 3rd Avenue. As you know, Reed, that is a very busy area of Midtown Manhattan. There were reporters from one of the local stations that was actually evacuated, who themselves were asking questions because they're concerned that they cannot go back into their office. There are 7 buildings that were evacuated where people cannot go back into their homes or their work, plus the building that had those crews working inside. So from where we stand, you're just looking at a building that is under construction. We're not seeing those bricks falling off. We're not seeing the building visibly move or significantly tilted. But from what the mayor and other officials said, it is a very serious situation that is being taken very seriously, not just because of the threat of the building collapsing, but because of what led to this. They are investigating. They are talking to the contractor, to the developers. How can you add 11 floors? It doesn't sound like those floors have already been added, but we didn't get a whole lot of clarity about that. But it sounds like it's one of the areas, the shorter area, so the one that is not visible from here. It's not the 37 floors that we're seeing, but the other area next to it, where you would have those 11 floors added to top at 22 stories. But what it seems is like where the columns buckled was on this side of the building.
All right, and it's our understanding that they're getting some construction
adding
materials.
barricades. That's the noise that you're hearing.
Okay, got it. So they are adding barricades, but also happening right now, they're bringing in some construction materials as well to try to shore up those floors, those new floors that are built on the existing building. Lilia, will let you get back to chasing the answers there from the ground. Thank you so much for talking to me. Meanwhile, there are some